You're watching All24 News World News Program. To the headlines. Iran walks back its deal with the U.S. following American strikes. Tehran is now targeting U.S. allies in the region as unconfirmed reports emerge of mines hidden to tankers near Hormuz Strait. Across the Mediterranean, Spain issues a stark warning. Greece declares a state of emergency, and Algeria faces a record-breaking heat wave from an extreme weather event. Also on news tonight, Africa is urged to act fast against Moroccan violations in Western Sahara as Polisario fronts calls for international help to protect Sahrawi prisoners, and Spain's parliament pushes for their release. And in Sudan, the UN sounds the alarm on growing famine in Al Obeid. Khartoum renews call to blacklist the Rapid Support Forces as terrorists. Stick around for the details now. Welcome back. First up in our news, the fragile diplomatic opening between the United States and Iran has collapsed into a cycle of escalating strikes, with Tehran suspending its commitments under an interim deal and warning of a wider conflict if the United States attacks continue. Marwa Bahri reports now.
On June 17th, the United States and Iran signed a memorandum of understanding in a bid to revive diplomacy, but just 1 month later, the region finds itself on the brink of a far wider conflict. On Saturday, the U.S. military's Central Command said it had completed its 7th consecutive day of strikes by hitting Iranian surveillance and military sites. Iranian media sources, however, said the U.S. attacks targeted an electricity and desalination plant in the southern Hormozgan province, cutting off water supplies to about 10,000 people. These strikes also damaged 2 tunnels and a bridge, disrupting one of the main highways toward Bandar Abbas. As the conflict shows no signs of abating, Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister Kazem Gharibabadi announced that Tehran had suspended its commitments under the interim deal with the U.S. The advisor to Iran's Supreme Leader, Mohsen Rizai, moreover, warned that the war will escalate to full-scale offensive operations if U.S. strikes continue.
I declare it is over. Both negotiation and war are over. If in the next 2 or 3 days the Americans continue the war, we will enter a phase of complete offense and destruction. Should they try to seize any part of our territory, we might enter that same phase of offense, abandoning our defensive posture, abandoning our deterrence and reciprocal measures.
In retaliation to U.S. attacks, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps said its naval forces targeted a U.S. military fuel pair at Kuwait's Al Ahmadi port and a U.S. warplane assembly site at Bahrain's Sheikh Issa Air Base. The RGC also said it attacked a U.S. base in Azraq in Jordan and destroyed 2 U.S. fighter jets. As the war intensifies, the struggle for the Strait of Hormuz became its defining front, as both sides contest control of the vital choke point that previously carried 1/5 of the world's crude oil. The RGC announced on Saturday that it had stopped 4 ships attempting to pass through the strait without its authorization, adding that 2 oil tankers caught fire after crossing a mined area south of the strait. As the security situation in the Middle East continues to deteriorate, the risk of the conflict spreading to critical infrastructure is mounting, amid rising fears that the war could expand from the Strait of Hormuz to the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, the strategic gateway to the Red Sea.
Meanwhile, shipping traffic through the Strait of Hormuz hit a 3-week low Thursday. Maritime tracker Kepler says only 8 ships made the transit. 7 others took the Iranian route. Attacks on tankers and the U.S. naval blockade are spooking the market, Kepler added. Shipping firms are now more rattled by military moves than by diplomacy. Reacting to the growing crisis, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov warned that the continued Middle East tensions could have serious consequences. He said the Strait of Hormuz crisis was hurting the global economy and disrupting trade, adding that the international north-south transport corridor was becoming increasingly important.
The Strait of Hormuz remains one of the world's most strategic waterways, carrying a significant portion of global energy exports. As the current crisis continues, restrictions on maritime movement through the strait have intensified, raising concerns among international markets and shipping companies amid growing military tensions across the region.
Turning to Gaza now, 9 Palestinians were killed and others wounded in Zionist occupation strikes on displaced people across the Gaza Strip since Saturday morning. 8, including 3 children, were killed in a joint strikes on Gaza City's Zaytun and Sabra neighborhoods, while another Palestinian later died from wounds sustained in a separate strike the previous day.
The war is still going on. There is no ceasefire at all. The bombardment brings back memories of destruction and death. It reminds us that Israel is continuing on this path of devastation until the last person in Gaza is gone. That is the message we feel they are sending us.
Also from Gaza, the Zionist occupation aggression has made traditional reporting increasingly difficult. Journalists are turning to a tool that fits the palm of their hands. A new training program is helping media workers and young graduates use smartphones to tell stories from the ground. Karim Sfai has the story.
As journalism in Gaza has become challenging more than ever amid the ongoing Zionist aggression, dozens of journalists and recent media graduates are turning to a simple but powerful tool to continue documenting Gaza's hardships, a smartphone now serving as their camera, their newsroom, and their connection to the world. Today, through a UNESCO-funded program implemented by the Palestinian Press House Foundation, they are strengthening their mobile journalism skills from news gathering and video editing to podcast production and digital storytelling.
Today, mobile journalism has become one of the most important reporting tools, as journalists increasingly rely on it for its speed in covering events and its ease of use compared with the traditional cameras and equipment. During the training, we learn camera angles, shot composition, and camera movement, which significantly improved our practical skills.
What is happening in Gaza needs to reach everyone, and there are many details that often go unnoticed. Through this course, I improved my understanding of story development, visual storytelling, filming, and publishing news content in the best possible way.
Inside training rooms and out in the field, Palestinian journalists are learning new ways to report as media institutions have been damaged or destroyed by the Zionist war machine, and safety remains a daily concern. Organizers say the program aims to support reporters in Gaza by providing the skills and tools needed to adapt to the difficult conditions they face.
Amid shortages of equipment, safety gear, and limited access to professional journalism training centers, we secure funding from UNESCO to enhance the skills of media graduates in Gaza in mobile journalism and modern digital journalism, helping them convey Gaza's reality to the world.
While access for most international media to Gaza is still restricted, local journalists remain a vital source of information. Their mission is clear: to ensure the voices and stories of Gaza are shared with audiences beyond its borders.
In another development from the occupied Palestinian territories, a Palestinian teenager died early Saturday from wounds suffered in an occupation raid. The 70-year-old was shot about a week ago northeast of Ramallah. The Palestinian media say he was hurt during an occupation operation and a settler attack on the village. He had been in critical condition ever since. Turning to Europe now, forest fires are spreading fast in northeastern Spain. Authorities say more than 12,000 hectares of forest have already burned. Regional officials warn that risk remains high. This is Spain's worst wildfire season this year. The fires have killed 13 people in the south and forced thousands from their homes. In related news, Greece declared a state of high alert as wildfires spread across the island of Evia, the country's second largest island. Authorities deployed dozens of firefighters and aircraft to battle the blaze, while drones monitored its spread and 2 residential areas were evacuated. The extreme conditions are being felt across the Mediterranean, and Algeria's National Meteorological Office says the record heat is no local fluke. It's a heat dome sweeping the Mediterranean, trapping hot air and pushing temperatures to unprecedented levels across the region. More on this story, Zahra Fajani, this time.
Algeria is in the grip of an exceptional heat wave, joining a growing list of countries across North Africa and the Mediterranean battling unusually high temperatures. In many parts of the country, the mercury has climbed to record levels, highlighting what experts say is no longer a series of isolated weather events, but part of a broader climate pattern affecting the entire region. Meteorologists warn that extreme weather is becoming both more frequent and more intense.
Algeria, located in North Africa and the Mediterranean basin, is particularly vulnerable to climate change due to its meteorological characteristics. The impact of climate change on rising temperatures and heat waves is well established. Climate change has contributed significantly to higher temperatures by intensifying what are known as extreme weather events.
Temperatures have soared across much of the country in recent days, with some areas approaching the 50 degrees Celsius mark. The National Meteorological Office has issued a series of heat alerts, urging people to take precautions as scorching air masses continue to blanket large parts of Algeria.
The so-called heat dome is a phenomenon in which hot air becomes trapped in the upper layers of the atmosphere. It is expected to persist at least until Tuesday.
With the heat expected to persist, authorities are urging the public to stay safe by avoiding direct sunlight during the hottest hours of the day.
Older adults, children, and people with chronic illnesses are advised to avoid going outdoors during the hottest part of the day, from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. They should stay well hydrated by drinking water regularly and follow the guidance and recommendations issued by the relevant authorities.
As record temperatures continue to be set and heat warnings remain in place, this latest heat wave is another stark reminder of the changing climate across the Mediterranean. For Algeria, these extreme conditions are becoming less of an exception and more of a recurring reality, a reality that calls for greater preparedness and stronger resilience as climate change continues to reshape weather patterns and pose an increasingly serious challenge for the region as a whole.
Further north, a massive wildfire in southern Norway destroyed more than 100 homes and forced hundreds of residents to evacuate. The blaze swept through a residential area near Drammen and spread into surrounding forests, raising fears it could continue to expand. Across the Atlantic, Canada said more than 200 wildfires remained out of control across the country's south, with smoke spreading into large parts of the United States. More than 950 fires were burning nationwide after nearly 2 million hectares were destroyed this year, while smoke worsened air quality from Manhattan to Chicago. President Donald Trump also threatened new tariffs against Canada, blaming it for the cross-border pollution.
We are holding Canada responsible for the fact that they are not properly maintaining their forests and brush therein, and the United States is being unnecessarily invaded by filthy, polluted, and unhealthy air, the quality of which is dangerous and totally unacceptable. I will call the Prime Minister during the day to find out what they are going to do about it. The cost is incalculable.
Back here in Algeria, the Constitutional Court announced the final parliamentary election results Saturday. Court President Leila Aslawi confirmed the FLN won 91 seats. The RND took 74, each gaining 1 seat from the parliamentary count. Al-Bina added 2 seats, while Al-Mustaqbal Front lost 3, but kept third place.
The winning lists are ranked according to the number of seats obtained as follows. National Liberation Front Party, 91 seats. National Democratic Rally, 74 seats. Future Front Party, 56 seats. Movement for Peaceful Society Party, 43 seats. National Construction Movement Party, 40 seats. Independent lists, 33 seats. Voice of the People Party, 16 seats. Socialist Forces Front, 12 seats. New Dawn Party, 6 seats. Freedom and Justice Party, 6 seats. Dignity Party, 5 seats. Justice and Development Front Party, 4 seats. Rally for Culture and Democracy Party, 4 seats. Rally for Hopes of Algeria Party, 3 seats. Workers' Party, 3 seats. Renaissance Movement Party, 2 seats. New Algeria Front Party, 1 seat. National Republican Alliance Party, 1 seat. Good Governance Front Party, 1 seat. Free Citizens Front Party 1 seat, Algerian Tension Party 1 seat, National Unity and Development Party 1 seat. Total seats 407.
The Constitutional Court also approved the voter turnout announced by the Independent National Election Authority. Turnout stood at 21.24% nationwide and 10.75% among members of the Algerian community abroad.
1.24%. Among the Algerian community abroad, 91,810 of the 154,285 registered voters participate in the election, representing a turnout of 10.75%.
The Constitutional Court President says numerous violations marked the vote. Aslawi confirmed votes for several parties were invalidated, most notably the Future Front in more than 230 polling stations across 9 districts, including Algiers, Biskra and Bouira.
After examining the polling station counting reports, the municipal compilation reports and the result consolidation reports, particularly in the following electoral districts: Algiers, Shlif, Bouira, Jilfa, Msila, Mila, Oran, Barika and Ain Wassara, it was found that significant violations had affected the integrity of the electoral process and the general electoral system in some polling stations within the aforementioned electoral districts.
Elsewhere in North Africa, the Sahrawi parliament called for urgent African action to protect Sahrawi political prisoners held in Moroccan prisons. It urged the Pan-African Parliament to protect hunger-striking detainees, send a fact-finding mission to assess the human rights situation, and support efforts to enable the Sahrawi people to exercise their right to self-determination. In a related appeal, the Polisario Front urged UN reporters and human rights bodies to intervene immediately to protect Sahrawi prisoners held by Morocco. Its representative in Geneva called for all necessary steps to safeguard prisoner Namas Fari and enforce UN recommendations, including his immediate release and that of all Sahrawi held in Moroccan jails. The Sahrawi Committee of Dismissed Workers also appealed for urgent action to save Asfari's life. In Spain, the Somar coalition submitted a parliamentary proposal calling for pressure on the Moroccan occupation to release Sahrawi prisoners. The initiative condemned what it described as systematic repression of Sahrawi supporters of self-determination and urged Spain and the European Union and the United Nations to demand the immediate and unconditional release of Namas Fari and all Sahrawi political prisoners. Turning to Africa, the UN is warning that famine is getting worse among displaced people in Al Obeid in Sudan as tensions rise in the region. After a visit there, the World Food Programme's Sudan director said the city once had 500,000 people. Now it's nearly double that. He stressed the need for a bigger aid response, but said resource limits are holding them back. Separately, Sudan renewed its call for the European Union to designate the Rapid Support Forces as a terrorist organization. Finance Minister Jibril Ibrahim urged the EU to increase pressure on foreign backers of the RSF, saying the move would help end the war. He also reaffirmed Sudan's support for peace initiatives that respect the country's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Turning to Eastern Europe, Russian authorities said at least 8 people were killed in one of the largest Ukrainian drone attacks since the war began. 7 people were killed and 24 others injured in a strike on a logistics center in the Tambov region, while another attack near Moscow killed 1 person and wounded 37 others. Moscow Mayor Sergei Sobyanin said more than 370 drones were launched toward the capital, with 64 intercepted as they approached the city. A fire at an oil depot in Noginsk also injured 2 people and forced evacuation of a maternity clinic. Ukraine, meanwhile, said one person was killed and 13 others were injured in Russian strikes on the port city of Odessa. Officials said one person was killed and 3 others injured in an attack on a cargo ship in the Black Sea, while other strikes wounded civilians in the Chernihiv and Kherson regions, as well as crew members aboard another vessel. Across the Atlantic, the death toll from the 2 earthquakes that struck Venezuela on June 24 has risen to 5,069. National Assembly President said Friday that 16,740 people were injured, 6,462 were rescued, and 17,707 remain homeless. And finally, in sports, the curtain falls on the 2026 World Cup tomorrow as Spain take on the defending champions Argentina in the final. Argentina will be chasing a second straight World Cup title and a 4th overall, while Spain will be aiming for its 2nd crown and its first since 2010. Sofian Kandura has the story.
As the sun rises on the final day of the 2026 World Cup, the world's attention turns to New Jersey, where the biggest match in football is set to crown a new world champion. For 90 minutes or perhaps more, everything else takes back a seat as history prepares to write its next chapter. One champion is chasing back-to-back titles, while the other is determined to reclaim football's ultimate prize after years of waiting. Argentina against Spain is by every measure in a World Cup final. The first expanded 48-team tournament concludes with 2 continental champions who have earned their place on the biggest stage. Argentina arrive one victory away from retaining the trophy and adding a 4th start with Jersey, combining experience, resilience, and the winning mentality that carried them to glory 4 years ago. Standing opposite to rejuvenated Spain, 16 years after lifting its only World Cup, La Roja returns to the final led by a new generation and guided by Luis de la Fuente, whose project has restored belief that collective football, tactical discipline, and character can bring Spain back to the summit of the world game. The final also brings together 2 generations of footballing excellence. Lionel Messi is preparing for the 6th and likely final World Cup appearance of his extraordinary career, chasing a 2nd world title that would provide the perfect ending to one of football's greatest stories. Across the pitch stands Lamine Yamal, playing in his first World Cup and carrying the hopes of a new generation eager to announce the arrival of a new era. It is a contest between 2 footballing traditions, 2 contrasting styles, and 2 teams capable of deciding the finest margins. A battle that might last 90 minutes or even longer, but one that will end with only one nation lifting the most precious trophy in the world football. When the final whistle blows, the World Cup will have a new or perhaps familiar home. Will the trophy remain in Buenos Aires, or will it begin the journey to Madrid?
Well, that's the end of our news program for tonight. Thank you for watching. Do take care now.